The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's Friday, and we got a lot to talk about today, but we got to do something for it. Am I on the gray camera today, not the white? Because it looks like they switched cameras.
They switched cameras.
Okay. I'm going to begin by, on the last show, I basically read an email I sent about not being involved with this, and what happened was, and I want to clarify, what happened was that, and we'll get into it in depth later because CJ has to undo a lot of misinformation and flat out fake news that's been going around. So CJ attended the hearing and actually stayed till the end. And I did not. My dog was having surgery yesterday, and politics goes on forever. But my dog having surgery is more important, frankly, to me. And
I don't blame you.
After CJ informed me that if I withdrew, and Danny Robillard was also going to withdraw because we were not happy with, as I said, trying to adjudicate the entire charter. We wanted it focused on the people, the majority of people not being heard by the way the election and the charter said in that very specific instance. I felt there was a better time and a better place to do the entire charter, that if we removed our names, that it would end up with the election being upheld because they would have had to refile with new names, and that would have allowed the election commission, who was appointed by the mayor, to certify him in office, and that would have basically not brought it to court. And we're going to get into why it was so important that it goes to court. And CJ's going to say it because it is pretty apparent, and CJ will get specific, that it's important to go to court. And all these little things that are being said only amplify why this had to be to court. And I will say, no, what people are saying, he won the election, the people have spoken, and they're going to win if we don't prevail. No. As a matter of fact, this is a win-win. I would like to win and have this election thrown out because the majority of people should elect their mayor, not a plurality. I think that flies in the face of any reasonable individual, and we'll get specific with that. The only societies I've ever seen where the minority runs the government was Nazi Germany, Russia, Joe Stalin, Putin. Those are the places where the minority rules, not the United States of America. And I will live by a court decision. I will never agree with it, and if I had the money, I would take it to the Supreme Court of the United States. But the reality is, this government is supposed to be of the people, by the people, and all the zombies who say that, and Joe Macy, I believe, was on the radio saying the people have spoken. Well, he got elected by 35% of the vote, 35.4. I don't have it in front of me, but I got a pretty good. I know it's 35-something, which meant that 64.9% or so of the total votes cast were against him. So he lost on two fronts. He lost the recall election, and the majority of people voted against him. So I think it's a very weak argument unless you live in Mother Russia or you lived in Nazi Germany that you won. You won on a technicality. That's like somebody who walks into McDonald's and shoots 28 people and gets found not guilty because a police officer didn't Mirandize him properly. Did he not commit the murder? Well, he did. You guys want on a technicality? It has to go to court, because even if we will lose, we will now know, and it will be reaffirmed that we've always been right, the people who oppose this charter, and we will know how to fix it. And then we will throw all our energy into fixing it. So with that being said, CJ, I want you to really kind of address what was really said and what happened, because I know that on the radio, Will Flanagan was talking about things, and it was not accurate. And a lot of people were talking about a lot of things yesterday based on that radio show. And it wasn't, because from what I've been told, and you said it, you told me because you were there, he left early.
He did leave early.
He left early. So he doesn't know what the final resolution of that hearing was. So would you please clarify and clear the air?
Yes, definitely. The issue here was that, and I'm not calling Will out for this, but he did have a show at 4 o'clock. That's when we got out of the courtroom, and he was on the air. So there's no way you're going to get from New Bedford to Somerset in 10 minutes or 5 minutes. It's going to take you a good 20, 25, 30 minutes. So he had to leave early because he had to be on the radio on time. But Heck stood there but I think Heck walked out with him as well. I can tell you now, there is no hearing today. Contrary to what Will Flanagan said, there is no hearing today. The decision on the injunctive relief, the TRO, the temporary restraining order, will be made at some point today. And that will stop the election from being certified if it's issued. If it doesn't get issued, then the election gets certified and we have a mayor. Now, if it doesn't get certified, we are still going forward, whether or not we get the TRO, to a evidentiary hearing, which will be held on Tuesday. Although the attorney for the plaintiffs, which are the 10 taxpayers, has a federal case going forward on Monday, which is a trial, and it was scheduled 3 years ago. That's how long ago they scheduled these trials. So the judge was kind of like, well, give us the docket number and I'll see what I'll do, type of attitude. But I'm sure that if the plaintiff's attorney has to be in another court that was scheduled 3 years ago, this judge is going to make accommodations. But he did say, he was getting a little agitated at this point in the hearing. He did say, if I schedule it for 9 o'clock on Tuesday, somebody better be here. This judge wasn't taking any games, I'm telling you now. The plaintiffs spoke for probably a good half hour, 45 minutes. The hearing started at 2:30 promptly. And they went over 8-8, they went over the recall provisions, they went over the intent of what the charter commissioners were, and the judge asked very specific questions. If the charter commission did not want this candidate or any candidate to appear on the ballot, why didn't they write it into the charter? Very simple. Joe Macy said the exact same thing. They didn't write it into the charter. That's all they had to do was write it into the charter. We can't read minds. Remember, what happens in a court of law is they only consider what's on the 4 sides of the paper. What's inside that block is all they consider. Just because you felt that you needed to do this. And, Mike Mayoza said many times on the radio, well, our intent was. Mike, guess what? The judge don't care about what your intent was. The judge basically eviscerated the charter commission. Because everything kept coming back to, well, the intent of the charter commission was, the intent of the charter commission was, the intent of the charter commission, and he doesn't care what the intent was. He said it very clearly, this charter is not clear. This is not a clear scenario. And Joe Macy said, well, these 10 taxpayers could have come forward and they could have filed this suit before the election if they wanted to object to the ballot, if they wanted to object to this election. We weren't, the 10 taxpayers who filed the suit weren't part of the recall effort. The recall effort should have done that. But they've all laid down and rolled over like puppies with their legs in the air going, you know what I mean? Like they're getting their bellies rubbed.
And we've said from the get-go that this charter, when we opposed we opposed it on the ballot, that it was vague and ambiguous.
That's right.
And the reality is, well, let me just, for people, intent, the only place I know, and I will get into some of the other aspects you talked about, the only place I've ever seen where intent is a factor in a legal decision is in labor law. And the reason it is because many labor law provisions are written by union leaders, and in some cases without the assistance of attorneys. And they are subject to interpretation. And it is not a law, it's a collective bargaining agreement. So the judge can factor in the fact that, look, this guy's not a lawyer. He may have meant this. I want to know what he meant. He may not have used the correct verbiage, but we want to know what he meant. I want to know if it was understood, that intent was understood, because you can open up any section of a collective bargaining agreement by mutual agreement between the city and a union. Labor law differs. I know labor law. I've seen it done. This is different. And as a matter of fact, I've been talking about 8-8, and a lot of people did. And I spoke to a very, very, very good lawyer after our show Wednesday. A man who was a corporation counsel, who has filed thousands of TROs and litigated. And he pointed out to me what the judge said, and CJ will jump in again and say fundamentally what the judge said. And I'll frankly admit it. I'm not like I'm not going to say the people spoke when I actually lost an election. I've always taken the consequences and told it like it was. I'm not gonna turn around and try to make excuses, and just as I did when I said I was going to withdraw. But my principles of getting this to court said, even though I may disagree with this and the way it's being presented and what the motivation for presenting it was, I've always said on this show and in my entire life that I don't care if I agree or disagree with you. If you have a petition or you're running for office, I don't have to vote for you, but I will protect your right as a citizen to be part of this government. That's why I chose not to remove my name from that petition. And when they went to court, and now my dog made it through his surgery very well. But I wish it was on another day because I'd like to have been there. But apparently the judge and the attorney from Boston fundamentally told me this beforehand, that we weren't wrong. We weren't wrong in saying it as a conflict. But law, this is one of the reasons I never became a lawyer. I don't like technicalities. To me, something's either a conflict or it isn't. But it gets to, as CJ was saying, it gets to what was said. This isn't labor law. The judge said, if you didn't want him running, why didn't you say it clearly? So it gets back to what we've always asserted, that this charter is the problem. I'm not blaming Jazel Correa. I'm not blaming Will Flanagan. I'm blaming the charter and the Charter Commission, except for Dan Robillard, because we knew this, because we didn't not just go to court now. We went to court with Will Flanagan for the same thing. We knew it had to be clearer, and they didn't do it, which is why we opposed this charter. But the judge apparently said, and CJ can expand on this, The judge apparently said that even though the first section removed him and the second section allowed him to get back in without a majority, it is a conflict in anybody's mind, but it's not a conflict in the eyes of the law, because apparently even the wording the semantics was wrong, because it says in there any two measures, and it's in a recall provision section. Apparently, and CJ, you can kind of say exactly what the judge said, because I'm paraphrasing here. The judge says that it's not a conflict because a measure is a governmental action.
Correct.
And the first part was actually a citizen's initiative.
It's a petition.
It's a petition and a citizen's initiative. So the fact is, it's a government action as an election. So he said that, therefore, even though it's a conflict, it's not a conflict, which is why I don't like the law anyway. In his, that's his reading of it. Can it be appealed? I guess so. But this was never brought out to us. Saying that we don't think it's applicable isn't saying it. If somebody would have told me and showed me a definition that a measure was a government action versus a petition and a citizen's action, I probably wouldn't have said it was a viable. I mean, it was viable. But the reality is, I will take the consequences. I did not know that, and apparently nobody else did. So whether it can be then appealed on constitutional grounds with the majority rules is up to court. But I think this highlights why this crap show had to go to court, because even if we don't prevail, we will now let everybody in Fall River, and we have a letter to the editor about taxpayers will suffer thanks to a confusing election. It wasn't a confusing election. It was a confusing charter that created this disaster, because this election would have been run the right way had the charter not been so vague and ambiguous. But the reality is, this has to go to court. So now, when we try to fix this, if you try to say that it shouldn't get fixed, shame on you. So go ahead. CJ, you want to kind of expand on that issue?
Yeah, the judge was very clear when he talked about, because this is on Section 8-8. Everyone said use Section 8-8 because it says whenever any two measures are on the ballot and they have conflicting votes, the provision with the highest number of votes wins. So people were saying that under Section 8-8, because the majority ruled that he's out of office and the minority ruled that he was mayor, that didn't apply. They were conflicting. So the majority ruled that, because if you read that, that's what it says. But again, wording.
Words.
And again, that's within the four corners of that document.
And also, not to interrupt you, but I got to get this in. If you remember on the last show, I read a paragraph from one of the news articles in one of the major papers that covered it that said wording can change an election.
That's right.
Improper wording can make an election, can actually destroy the intent of the election.
That's right. And that's basically what's happening here.
Yeah, because look, even the attorney I spoke to in Boston said, look, you guys were not out like out in Pluto with this interpretation. The average person does not say, well, because one, it's a provision. They're different sections. One's a petition from the citizens, and the other one is a government action that they can't be looked at as being conflicting. That, as I said, a very specific, and one of the reasons I hate, I couldn't be a lawyer, because stuff like that drives me absolutely bananas, because they just don't care about what intent is, except in labor law, as I said, because you can commit murder and get off on a technicality. And to me, I don't agree, but you got to live with it. That's the law. So, but the thing is, getting it to court, for all you people who are, whining, and we took it because we didn't take it because of Jay's, and we did the same thing. And we actually, you know what the definition of insanity is? repeating the same action and expecting a different result.
Well, you know,
We are insane because when we took the first recall to court, Judge McGuire said the same thing. If you don't want it to be eligible, say it.
that's right.
And we had a new charter, and they didn't say it. And that's the reason that we never were in favor of this charter. We've always said that they screwed up. And I don't care how many times Mike Maioza tries to cover himself by saying it was our intent. It's not you and I again and saying, oh, you just don't like the outcome. No, it was a judge this time who said it. Because he said, what did you say, CJ? If you wanted it to say that,
It should have said it.
it should have said it.
And that's the problem. And another argument that was presented by Joe Macy, which I thought was very interesting. Because he said, you know, that again, the people voted. The election was run by the charter, followed the charter, and it was a legal election. The polls were open on time, the ballots were printed on time, and he made it clear.
And the candidates were certified properly.
Right, the candidates were certified properly. Everything was right the way an election is run under Massachusetts general law. But he said, we followed the charter. And technically, they did.
In this case.
But here's where the rub came in. He opened the door when he said we followed the charter, because he said we always follow the charter. Bam, he got nailed there. And they followed the ruling of Judge McGuire, which doesn't exist anymore because 292 was repealed. So they didn't do it that way. But the election commissioner has a legal opinion from Joe Macy saying how to do the ballot. And he kept saying the administration had nothing to do with this ballot. He's the administration. He's part of the administration. Therefore, he did have something to do with this ballot.
Yeah, and as he said, we always follow the charter, and he got hit on that. That's the reason they're having the evidentiary hearing. And I will be there on Tuesday to watch it, because we know how many times they have not...
Nowhere in our filing does it say that.
Which I never wanted to do.
Right.
Exactly.
And we didn't want to do that. So when that happened, I thought the charter commissioner, there was a charter commissioner there, there was an election commissioner there. I thought the charter commissioner was going to cry. I honestly thought she was going to cry. Because everything we've been saying, and I leaned over and I said, I told you, you didn't put it in. But that's what we intended. It doesn't matter what you intended. It's not in there. And that goes for the entire charter. It is so vague, it's unbelievable. Well, we had to do it that way. Other people would have voted it down. Good, they should have voted it down. It proves that the Fall River voter is too stupid. Proves it outright. Or they're just ignorant. Because this is how we get into problems. This is how we get into problems. Nobody really reviewed that charter. Everyone just said, oh, it's about charter schools. Okay, yeah, we'll just vote for it.
Well, you know, and you can't, well, you can, because we always on this show are very adamant about educating yourself and listening and researching. But, you know, Maioza and everybody except Dan Robillard did a very good job of saying how wonderful this charter is, how wonderful job that this individual they hired as a consultant did, making a conglomerate of all different other boilerplate languages. I actually think he should be subpoenaed for the evidentiary hearing, because, you know, they did a great job of selling a pig in a poke to the people. And as the quote I said in my little email from Winston Churchill, if you want to see the best argument against the democracy, have a 5-minute conversation with the average voter. The average voter allows themselves to be duped. They do not research. They do not educate themselves. And, you know, this is the result of it. We end up with this kind of mess. And I think it's good, you know, to refer back to what's in the article. He said they should have done it before, but they did not make a peep. Well, we weren't involved in that recall. And shame on them for not making a peep. But we've been peeping for a very long time, much to their chagrin. We have been peeping on this show and on our own as individuals our entire lives, CJ and I.
We can be called peeping toms.
And yeah, well, and that's where we're peepers for sure, right? But the thing is, this is the problem. Somebody has to stand up, as Nehemiah said about the Holocaust. When he didn't speak up, and all those other groups he defined in his statement, and he said, and when they came for me, there was no one left to speak. Well, the people of Fall River are being victimized, and we got people writing letters about the taxpayers suffered. Well, the taxpayers are being suffered not because of Jazel career. I cannot blame him for trying to stay in office. I cannot blame Joe Macy. It's his job to try to keep him in office. I cannot blame anybody except the Charter Commission, because as the judge said, if you wanted to say it, you should have said it.
That's right.
And this is the problem. You can't, we said, and like I said, some people hate to say I told you so. Well, I don't. I'm not one of those people. We told you so. And and this gets back to everything else. And this is why even our opponents who are complaining about us going to court, you should be applauding us, because you know something? This is going to get decided one way or another. And if you win, you can go out and celebrate. But even though if we lose, I will not think we lost, because now we know why we lost. We always knew it, that it was the charter.
Right.
But we will now know, and now the people of Fall River will have no excuse not to fix it, because we didn't get burnt once. We got burnt twice. And you remember that old adage? You fool me once, shame on you. You fool me twice, shame on me.
That's right.
Well, they fooled us twice, so shame on us. They didn't fool us, but we didn't win that election when we were in a minority. We voted against this charter.
That's right.
But we lost because we took the majority opinion.
That's it.
So
now, another one of Joe Macy's arguments was the only reason for this lawsuit, which I thought was amazing, was because these 10 taxpayers are not happy with the result of the election. He honestly said that this lawsuit is totally about the fact that the people are not happy with the result of the election.
Well, that's half true.
It's half true, yeah.
It's half true. I'm not happy with the results of the election, but I said on this show, if Jazel would have gotten 50.01%, I wouldn't be in court right now.
That's right, neither would we.
Because I firmly believe that the Constitution of this state and the word democracy means that the majority rules. Because I think that the people who won were upset with us for opposing the charter, even though we were right. We didn't get to win that one. So it's, in my opinion, you guys are wrong. But you got to win. But you won on a technicality. We couldn't win on that technicality. We can't go into court now and say, I challenge the fact that that this charter became law, because we were the minority, but we were right. You know what they're going to say? Shut your mouth. Majority rules.
Well, another interesting part, and I'm going to get this in real quick, is the charter says successor until the successor is put in. The Charter Commission says successor means a new person. Black's Law's dictionary says it's a new person, but they're saying that the mayor can succeed himself.
That's right. And by the way, I will call out Will. You're a lawyer, and you should have known that hearing wasn't over till it was over, and you shouldn't have put out anything you didn't know about.
That's true. That's true. But hey, it is what it is.
But then again, fake news is an accepted type of news in today's society. So, all right.
And right now, like I said, we're waiting for the results of the TRO. We'll talk to you about it on Monday.
And on Monday or Wednesday's show, we'll be talking about it again.
Thank you for watching. Have a great day.
Stay angry.